This is Dante Alighieri. He's one of the few people that are quite worth mentioning to be able to change the whole course of history with words. He was able to change the literary theater of the Italian front. This is talking in war language here, mainly because I was learning war history before, and I'm still stuck with war vocabulary. Unfortunately for you guys, though, I will probably stop using them from now on. He himself, after changing the Italian front and the Italian war theater, lied about stopping the war vocabulary. He would go ahead and transform other things too, while as the Bible went ahead and briefly described what heaven and hell looked like. Probably because they thought your human minds cannot comprehend it within the book. Even though the Bible itself is quite a gigantic and sick book. He would go ahead and try his best to recreate everything from hell from his own imagination. He described hell in his Inferno. He described the purgatory mountain, the purging of the store, like the purging of the soul from its sins, and heaven itself, which is probably known as Paradiso. All throughout the journey himself, he would go ahead with his senpai Virgil. I am watching Japanese stuff a little too much. And his beloved Beatrice, who is quite a romance, I will have to mention. Not to mention that he was already married to another woman, and you probably wouldn't know he was married to another woman based on the poems he was writing about Beatrice. He apparently loves her so much more than his soul, even though they only officially met like 2 times. Now that you got a brief overview of the man himself, let's start this off. Now, Dante Alighieri was born probably sometime in May of 1265. We are assuming this, and we are inferring this from the Inferno, probably because they have this line. Midway through a human's life, by the way, this is implying that he's 35 years old due to the fact that the Bible themselves say that 70 years old is the average lifespan of a human. And he wrote it in like 1300, so if we minus 35, it would be in 1265. We even get an inference about the stars Gemini. He was born under the stars Gemini. We know that because he describes them as twins, and Geminis are twins. And we find out that in 1265, May 11th to June 11th are the dates with the Gemini in them. So basically, understand that his birthday is like somewhere between May 11th of June, May 11th to June 11th of 1265. He was born in Florence, in the Republic of Florence, which is now part of the modern-day Italy. And he was from a political family of okay standing. His full name is Durante di Alighiero degli Alighieri. Obviously, he was born to the Alighieri family. This is when he would literally meet his love of his life. We don't know much about his education. Why am I switching from love to education? Don't ask me. We don't know much about his education, so not much is known. We do know certain parts of it, such as the fact that he was learning Tuscan literature, and he was probably in a somewhat of a grammar school or a chapter school connected to a chapel. While learning Tuscan, specifically his own version of the Tuscan dialect, he would write poems and sonnets. This would be his primary language for the rest of his life. He would go ahead and get himself educated quite well, even going so far as to learn Latin. And at the age of 9, he said and he claimed that he met the love of his life for the first time, her name being Beatrice Portinari, which was, well, he met her at the age 9 while she was at the age of 8. And he only met her once after that, literally once, and he literally said that he loved her so much. As mentioned above, you probably wouldn't even know he was married because of all his dedication to his Beatrice, even after her death. It is around this time that there was quite a bunch of political upheaval. Obviously, Italy in the 13th century, or 14th century, I suppose, is quite a mess. There was a bitter conflict between the Guelphs and the Ghibellines for the control of Florence, and which one, and like what kind of territory that they would be taking, and how they would be ruling. And then suddenly Ghibelline was suddenly like part. Ghibelline was suddenly part of the entire part of the book. This is a political standoff, and when the Ghibellines were finally defeated, the Guelphs themselves into 2 groups. They split themselves into 2 groups. White Guelphs and the Black Guelphs. White Guelphs were the ones who wanted to have more immunity and more protection and more freedom over the control of the Pope, while as a contrast towards the Black ones, they would go ahead and try to advocate for the power of the Pope to come back in and rule them all again. How gullible. Oh, and speaking of the wife I was talking about earlier, her name is Germaine di Manito Donati, and she was from another obvious question and another obvious answer, Donati family, which itself was quite powerful and much more richer than, well, Dante's family. As a result, he married her for political reasons, although he would say he dedicated the rest of his life towards his beloved Beatrice. Due to his now sudden social rank going up, he was able to go ahead and gain several political offices, helping Florence in their management and other aspects of political life too. Later on, he would go ahead and study things too. He would keep on studying and learning his opponents. And when finally the Pope decided that the white Guelphs, he had enough with the white Guelphs and wanted the black Guelphs to take control, he sent an expedition, a letter to France, so that they would go ahead, send an expedition of friendly troops that would go ahead and convince the Florentines to go ahead and kindly give control back to the black people. And by kindly, we obviously mean with force. Now, the Florentines knew that this force would be coming, but they didn't want this force to be coming because they cannot take on an entire French empire. So they sent Dante Alighieri towards the front, where he would discuss with the Pope on how this would work out, what went out for him was that, no. He was like, no, I am not dealing with this anymore. I am going ahead. I've been kicked out of my own country merely because I was just outside at the wrong time. At least he got away with his life. While as others, such as Machiavelli 200 years later, would go ahead and try to come back into Florence after exile by saying that, hey, I'm good at politics. I'm good and really useful towards you. Dante himself was more like, yeah, you know what, I'm not gonna care about this anymore. I don't really care about Florence anymore. How much I miss Florence, even as much as I hate the people there. With other admired poets like Virgil, he would go ahead and write several other pieces of work as well too, with his Divine Comedy being the entire basis of his own career. His Divine Comedy itself was quite a big hit, but it wasn't quite a big hit immediately. He would go ahead and teach people about things too. He'd go ahead and tell them about other things and how to live their own lives and how to cross Purgatory Mountain, and including how to get into situation. While Dante was exiled, he would go ahead and work on his Divine Comedy. And his work on the Divine Comedy was basically something like, hey, you know what, screw you guys, I'm doing my own thing. Yeah, that's not exactly going to work out, isn't it? What made his Divine Comedy quite special was its representation of the afterlife, whereas the Bible, even though it's way sicker or way bigger than these stories and poems, we would go ahead and get more details out of these about heaven and hell and Purgatory Mountain. Inferno talking about hell, Purgatorio talking about the Purgatory Mountain, and Paradiso talking about paradise, aka heaven, aka the home of God. He himself would even go ahead and teach them concentric circles, where each concentric circle going down would mean a pretty worse fate, especially in hell. Where number 1 circle is like, I wish I was the number 2 circle. When he finally finished his Divine Comedy, a year before his new death, he would go ahead and try to promote it pretty well. He would only get a few scholars, though, probably because they realized this thing was in Latin and that it was in the Tuscan dialect, meaning anyone could read it, and that this wasn't exactly a scholarly text. Unfortunately for them, though, this became scholarly reading, and, well, they were convinced. When he himself finally wandering around Italy again and settling down in Ravenna, he would be too late to see the impact of his own piece of work had onto the entire world. He died in Ravenna. Here is his tomb. This is an actual landmark that you can go visit. And inside here are the remains of Dante. You go ahead, learn about Dante. You go ahead and learn about his hell, his Purgatory Mountain, his heaven. You learn a lot of things. But once you learn them all and get the hang of them, you will never forget them. That is the one thing about Dante that I respect the most. And that is one thing that lots of people say that they respect about me. Dante himself might be one of my role models. But as long as he is one of my role models, and as long as he is able to go ahead and give sound and good advice, I will trust him. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode on Dante. I will really hope to make a new Doctrine episode soon. But until then, Shana, peace. Bye-bye.